General Marcus Stone stood at the observation deck of Outpost 7, his weathered hands clasped behind his back. Through the reinforced glass, he watched as the dark shapes of Imperial warships appeared in New Eden's sky. They looked like black wounds against the orange sunset, their massive hulls blocking out the stars. "Sir, they're broadcasting their demands again," Lieutenant Reed said, her voice steady despite the fear Stone could hear beneath it. "They want our immediate surrender." Stone didn't turn around. His blue eyes remained fixed on the growing fleet above. 20 years of military service had taught him to recognize patterns, and this one was clear. The Empire wasn't here to accept any surrender. "How many civilians made it to the bunkers?" he asked. 70%, sir. Including your—" Reed hesitated. "Your family is safe in Bunker 3. Stone nodded slowly. Mary had always said he was too cautious, building those bunkers. Now he wished he'd built more. The colony of New Eden held over 50,000 people. Farmers, teachers, children. People who'd come here for a fresh start, far from Earth's crowded cities. The first blast lit up the evening sky like a second sun. Stone didn't flinch as the Imperial ships opened fire. Their energy weapons carved glowing lines through the atmosphere, targeting the colony's defensive shields. "Sir, shields at 60%. Someone shouted from the command center behind him. Stone finally turned around, his face calm despite the chaos. The command center buzzed with activity as his officers worked at their stations. They were good people, trained, professional, but they'd never faced anything like this. "Launch our fighters," Stone ordered. "All of them. And get me a direct line to the Imperial command ship." The room fell silent for a moment. Everyone knew their fighters didn't stand a chance against an Imperial fleet, but they also knew Stone never gave an order without a reason. The communications officer, Parker, spoke up. "Channel open, sir." Stone stepped up to the main screen, where the face of an Imperial commander appeared. The alien's gray skin and multiple eyes were typical of the Empire's ruling species, but Stone noticed something else, the slight twitch of its facial tendrils, a sign of excitement. "This is General Marcus Stone of the Human Defense Force," Stone said clearly. "Your attack on a civilian colony violates 3 separate peace treaties." The Imperial commander's translator converted his clicks and whistles into English. "Treaties you violated first, human, by expanding beyond your assigned territories. The Empire's patience has ended. Your species' aggression will be contained." Stone's eyes narrowed. "We built farms here. Schools. How is that aggression?" "You built weapons factories disguised as schools. Military bases hidden as farms. The Empire is not blind, General Stone. We've watched your kind spread across the stars like a virus, infecting everything you touch with your chaos." A massive explosion rocked the outpost. Stone grabbed his console to stay upright. The shields were failing faster than expected. "Sir," Reed shouted, "they're targeting the bunkers. Their weapons are penetrating our—" Stone's world went white. The blast threw him across the room, alarm screaming in his ears. As his vision cleared, he saw the horror on the main screen. Bunker 3, where his family had taken shelter, was nothing but a smoking crater. The Imperial commander's face showed no emotion. "The Empire brings order, General Stone. Your species brings only disorder. This is a cleansing, nothing more." Stone stood slowly, blood trickling from a cut on his forehead. Around him, his command center was in ruins. Through the damaged observation window, he could see the colony burning. Everything he'd helped build, everyone he'd loved, being systematically destroyed by an empire that called itself civilized. In that moment, something changed in Stone's eyes. The professional soldier disappeared, replaced by something older. Something that Imperial algorithms and battle computers couldn't quantify. Something purely human. The Empire had made its move, thinking they understood humanity. They thought they were ending a threat. Instead, they had just created their worst nightmare. A human with nothing left to lose, and the knowledge of exactly how to hurt them back. Stone's last thought, before the final blast hit, was a promise. This wouldn't be the end. This would be the beginning. Pain was the first thing General Stone felt when he woke up. His body ached from the blast that had knocked him unconscious. Around him, emergency lights cast red shadows across the ruined command center. The air smelled of burned metal and smoke. "General, you're alive." Lieutenant Reed appeared from behind a fallen beam. Her uniform was torn and dirty, but she looked determined. "We thought we'd lost you in the blast." Stone pushed himself up, checking his injuries. Nothing seemed broken. "How many survived?" 12 of us from the command center," Reed replied. "Parker managed to get the emergency systems working. But, sir, the Empire thinks everyone's dead. They're broadcasting victory messages." A thin smile crossed Stone's face. "Good. That's exactly what we need." He stood up, his military training taking over. "Where's Parker now?" "In the lower levels with the others. We found something you need to see." Stone followed Reed through the damaged corridors of Outpost 7. The Imperial bombardment had stopped, but distant explosions still echoed as the Empire methodically destroyed what remained of the colony. Each boom made Stone's jaw tighten, but he kept walking. The lower levels were better protected. Here, backup generators still worked, and the air was clearer. Parker and the other survivors had set up a temporary command post in what used to be a storage area, but it wasn't the makeshift headquarters that caught Stone's attention. Behind a hidden panel that the blast had exposed, sat something that shouldn't exist. A sleek, black ship unlike anything in the human fleet. "Project Shadow," Stone whispered. "I thought it was just a rumor." Captain Roberts, their chief engineer, stepped forward. "Not a rumor, sir. We've been building her in secret for 2 years. She's got experimental stealth systems that even the Empire can't detect. We were supposed to reveal her next month, but now she's our ticket out of here." Stone finished. He walked around the ship, studying its smooth lines. "Does she fly?" "Better than anything you've ever seen, sir," Roberts said proudly. "She's fully stocked, too. Food, weapons, medical supplies. Enough for a long journey." Stone nodded slowly, a plan forming in his mind. The Empire thinks they've won. Their victory celebration will keep them busy, and their computers will be updating their databases, marking all humans on New Eden as eliminated. "Which means their security systems won't be looking for us," Reed added, catching on. "Exactly." Stone turned to face the survivors. "I won't lie to you. What I'm planning is dangerous. The Empire will kill us if they catch us, but they've already taken everything from us. Now it's our turn to take something from them." Parker spoke up from his computer station. "Sir, I've been monitoring their communications. They're starting to withdraw their ships. They think their job is done. Then we don't have much time." Stone's voice carried the authority that had made him a general. "Roberts, how fast can you get that ship ready?" 20 minutes, sir. Maybe 15. You have 10. Reed, Parker, gather every piece of data you can from our systems. The Empire thinks they've destroyed our knowledge along with our people. That's another mistake they'll regret." The survivors moved with purpose, their shock and grief temporarily pushed aside by the need to act. Stone watched them work, his mind already racing ahead to the next steps. The Empire had studied humans for years, learning their strengths and weaknesses. But they'd missed something important. Humans were at their most dangerous when they had nothing left to lose. 10 minutes later, the black ship rose silently from the ruins of Outpost 7. Above, the Imperial fleet was already jumping away, their commanders eager to report their victory. None of their sensors detected the small shape moving through their formation, using their own ships as cover. Stone sat in the pilot's seat, his hands steady on the controls. Behind him, 11 survivors carried humanity's hope for revenge. And in his pocket, a small data chip held everything they'd need to make the Empire regret the day they decided to test humanity's limits. The ship slipped into darkness, vanishing among the stars. The Empire's celebration had begun, but so had their downfall. 3 months after the destruction of New Eden, Stone stood in a crowded bar on the frontier world of Rust. The place stank of cheap alcohol and unwashed aliens, but it was perfect for his needs. Nobody here looked too closely at strangers, and Imperial patrols rarely bothered with such places. "Another drink, friend?" the bartender asked, his 4 arms working busily with various bottles. Stone shook his head, keeping his hood low over his face. He was watching 2 humans sitting in the corner, miners by the look of their worn clothes. They weren't the first survivors he'd found. Small groups of humans had escaped the Empire's attacks, scattering across the galaxy's forgotten corners. Lieutenant Reed appeared at his side, pretending to order a drink. "They're clean, sir. No Imperial tracking devices, and they've got interesting stories to tell." Stone nodded slightly. "Make contact. Use the usual approach." Reed walked casually to the miner's table, stumbling slightly as if drunk. Stone watched as she accidentally spilled her drink on one of them. The practiced apologies, the offered credits for cleaning, and then the careful conversation that would lead to the question they all needed to hear. "Were you there when it happened?" Meanwhile, Stone's data pad quietly blinked with updates from other teams. Captain Roberts had found a hidden shipyard in the asteroid belt of the Taurus system. Parker was recruiting communications experts from the underground markets. Each small victory brought them closer to their goal. An hour later, Stone sat with the miners in a private room behind the bar. Their names were Jack and Tom, and their eyes held the same haunted look he'd seen in every human survivor. "We thought we were the only ones left," Jack said, his voice rough with emotion. "The Empire. They hit our mining colony without warning. We only survived because we were deep underground. That's what they want everyone to think," Stone replied. "That humanity is finished. But they made a mistake. They didn't finish the job." Tom leaned forward. "We've heard rumors about a resistance forming, about someone gathering survivors. Rumors can be dangerous," Stone said carefully, "but sometimes they're true. Tell me, what would you do if you had a chance to fight back?" The miners exchanged looks. "We've got connections," Tom said. "Other mining colonies that haven't been found yet, and we know these frontier worlds better than any Imperial map." Stone allowed himself a small smile. This was how it always went. The Empire thought they'd crushed humanity's spirit, but they'd only scattered it, like seeds in the wind. Each survivor had something to offer: knowledge, skills, connections, and most importantly, they had rage. "The Empire thinks they understand humans," Stone explained, pulling out a secure data tablet. "They studied our military tactics, our technology, our social structures, but they missed something crucial." He showed them images, hidden bases being built in asteroid fields, weapons being stockpiled, communication networks spreading like spider webs through the galaxy's dark corners. "Humans don't just fight with ships and guns," Stone continued. "We fight with hope, with determination. Every survivor we find makes us stronger. Every skill we gather adds to our arsenal." Jack studied the images with growing excitement. "How many of us are there?" "More every day. The Empire's victory celebration is still going on, but they don't realize they're celebrating their own downfall. While they feast in their palaces, we're building something they can't understand. A resistance without a center. A force they can't target because it's everywhere and nowhere." Stone stood, his presence filling the small room. "The question is, are you ready to be part of it? It won't be easy. We'll be living in shadows, striking fast and vanishing before they can respond. But one day, the Empire will realize their mistake. By then, it will be too late." The miners stood as well, their decision clear in their eyes. 2 more survivors added to the growing network. 2 more pieces in the complex game Stone was building. As they left the bar that night, Stone's data pad blinked with a new message. Another group of survivors found on a remote farming world. The resistance grew stronger, one person at a time, while the Empire celebrated their greatest mistake. 6 months into building the resistance, Stone sat in the hidden command center of Asteroid Base Alpha, watching a captured Imperial battle simulation play on the main screen. Around him, his top officers studied the holographic display with intense focus. "Play it again, Parker," Stone ordered, his eyes narrowing. "Slow it down at the 30-second mark." The simulation restarted. Imperial warships moved in perfect formation, their responses to threats looking almost beautiful in their precision. Then, at 30 seconds, something unexpected happened. A small asteroid hit one of the ships from an unusual angle. "There," Stone pointed. "Watch how they react." The Imperial fleet's response was fascinating. Instead of adapting naturally to the surprise, every ship in the formation followed exact protocols, moving through predetermined patterns that actually made their situation worse. Lieutenant Reed stepped closer to the display. "They're like robots, sir. Even their emergency responses are completely programmed." "Exactly." Stone stood up, excitement in his voice. "The Empire prides itself on perfect order. Every officer, every ship, every battle group follows the same protocols, stored in their central AI systems. They think it makes them stronger." Captain Roberts spoke up from his engineering station. "But it makes them predictable. If we know their protocols, we can make them dance to our tune." Stone finished. He turned to Parker. "Show them what you found in their communications." Parker typed quickly, bringing up intercepted Imperial messages. "They don't just use AI for battles. Everything they do follows strict patterns. Their patrol routes, their response times, even their refueling schedules. It's all programmed and coordinated by their central computers." Stone walked around the command table, his mind racing with possibilities. The Empire thinks this makes them superior. No chaos, no human error, no unpredictable elements. But they've built their entire military on a foundation of glass. He pressed a button, showing a map of recent resistance activities. Small red dots marked their strikes against Imperial targets, mostly supply ships and remote outposts. Each attack looked random, but there was a pattern only Stone could see. "Every time we strike," he explained, "their response follows exact protocols. And every response tells us more about how their system works." "Parker, show them the analysis." New data flowed across the screen. Charts, graphs, and prediction models built from months of careful observation. The Empire's perfect order had become their perfect weakness. "Sir," Reed said slowly, "are you saying we can predict exactly how they'll react to any situation?" "Better than that." Stone smiled. "We can make them react exactly how we want. Every protocol they follow is like a piece of programming we can exploit. When we hit Target A, they'll always send ships from Base B. When we threaten Sector X, they'll always redirect forces from Sector Y." Roberts whistled softly. "We can use their own responses against them. Make them move their ships exactly where we want them." "But sir," Parker added, "won't they eventually notice the pattern in our attacks?" Stone's smile grew wider. "That's the beauty of it. They're so dependent on their AI systems, they don't trust their own instincts anymore. Their computers tell them our attacks are random, so that's what they believe." He brought up a new display, a complex web of planned operations that looked chaotic, but followed a careful design. "We're going to launch a series of strikes. Each one will seem random. Each one will trigger specific Imperial protocols. And each response will weaken them in ways their computers won't understand until it's too late." The officers gathered around the table, studying the plan with growing excitement. They had started as survivors, hiding from Imperial patrols. Now they were becoming something more, a force that could actually hurt the Empire. "Remember," Stone said quietly, "the Empire thinks they destroy humanity because they don't understand what makes us strong. They see our unpredictability as weakness. They don't realize that chaos, properly controlled, is the most powerful weapon in the universe. In the depths of space, The first pieces of Stone's grand strategy were already moving into place. The Empire's perfect order was about to meet humanity's perfect chaos. 1 year after the fall of New Eden, the Imperial Council held an emergency meeting in their grand hall on the capital world. The massive chamber, usually a picture of perfect order, now buzzed with nervous energy as reports flowed in from across the galaxy. Another supply convoy destroyed in the outer rim. One counselor announced, his gray skin showing signs of stress. Third one this month. No survivors, no witnesses. Increased security measures have been implemented. Another added quickly. All convoys now travel with double the escort ships, following new protective protocols. In the shadows of the observation gallery above, Stone watched through carefully crafted holographic disguises. Next to him, Lieutenant Reed monitored the Imperial security feeds through a hidden device. "They're doing exactly what you predicted, sir," she whispered, doubling down on their protocols, adding more rules and restrictions. Stone nodded slightly. "And how are their subject worlds responding to the increased security?" Reports of unrest are up 40%. The extra patrols and stricter controls are making everyone nervous. Even their loyal worlds are starting to complain. Below them, the council meeting grew more heated. Another counselor stood, projecting a map of recent incidents onto the central display. "These attacks make no sense. Our computers can find no pattern, no logic to their targets. It's chaos." Stone allowed himself a small smile. Chaos was exactly what he wanted them to see. Each attack had been carefully planned to appear random while following his precise strategy. The Empire's response to each incident pushed them further into rigid control, and that control was beginning to crack their foundation. Later that day, Stone met with his command team in their newest hidden base. The room's walls displayed hundreds of reports from across Imperial space: riots on trade worlds, protests against increased security, growing tension between Imperial forces and local authorities. The Empire's greatest fear, Stone explained to his officers, is disorder. Every time they face something they don't understand, they try to control it with more rules, more restrictions, and every new restriction creates more resistance. Parker brought up new data on the main screen. Their own allies are starting to question them. The Trade Federation is angry about increased shipping delays. The mining guilds are losing profits due to extra security checks. "And their military?" Stone asked. Captain Roberts answered, stretched thin trying to enforce all the new protocols. "They're so focused on following exact procedures that they're losing the ability to adapt. Some of their own commanders are starting to complain. Quietly, of course." Stone walked to the center of the room, his voice carrying the weight of certainty. "The Empire thinks they're showing strength by increasing control. Instead, they're showing fear. Every new restriction, every tightened protocol becomes another crack in their foundation." He brought up an image of the Imperial capital, its perfect towers reaching into the sky. They built their power on the idea of perfect order. But the galaxy isn't meant to be perfectly ordered. Life itself is a balance between chaos and control. Lieutenant Reed added, "The more they try to impose absolute control, the more they create the very chaos they fear." Stone finished. "Their own actions are doing more damage than our attacks. We're just," he smiled, "helping things along." The meeting continued as they planned their next moves. Each strike would be calculated to cause the maximum psychological impact, pushing the Empire to impose even stricter controls. Those controls would generate more resistance, creating a cycle that the Empire's rigid thinking couldn't break. In the year since losing everything at New Eden, Stone had learned something crucial about revenge. Sometimes the best way to defeat an enemy wasn't to break them from the outside, but to make them break themselves from within. As the Empire tightened its grip on the galaxy, trying desperately to maintain perfect order, they didn't realize they were following Stone's carefully crafted path to their own destruction. The ripples of chaos were becoming waves, and soon those waves would become a storm that no amount of control could contain. 18 months after the destruction of New Eden, Stone stood before an unusual gathering in the largest chamber of Asteroid Base Alpha. The room was filled with representatives from 12 different species, former subjects of the Empire who had secretly answered his call. "You've all seen what the Empire really is," Stone began, his voice carrying across the chamber. "Not the bringers of order they claim to be, but destroyers of anyone who doesn't fit their perfect system." The assembled aliens watched him with various types of eyes and sensory organs. Some floated in special atmosphere tanks, others stood on multiple legs or hovered using personal gravity devices. All of them had suffered under Imperial rule. A tall crystalline being stepped forward. "The Empire killed half my people when we refused to change our trading practices to match their protocols." The crystal's surface flickered with colors of anger. "But we are not warriors. How can we fight them?" "Not all battles are fought with weapons," Stone replied. He pressed a button, showing a map of recent Imperial troubles. "Look at what a small group of human survivors has accomplished in just 18 months. Now imagine what we could do together." The representatives studied the display. Red dots showed successful resistance attacks. Yellow areas marked regions of unrest. Green highlighted sectors where Imperial control was weakening. "Impressive," rumbled a massive being covered in thick scales. "But the Empire's response will be brutal. They nearly wiped out humanity. They won't show mercy to any who join you." Lieutenant Reed stepped forward, carrying a secure data tablet. "That's exactly why we need to work together. Alone, we're vulnerable. United, we can use each other's strengths. The Empire doesn't understand alliance. They only understand control." She showed them footage of successful resistance operations. "Humans provide strategic planning and unpredictability. But we need your knowledge, your resources, your unique abilities. Each of your species has something the Empire fears." A small, quick-moving creature darted to the front. "My people control many transport networks. We make them look legitimate to Imperial scanners." But it clicked its mandibles in what might have been a smile. "Accidents can happen. Our mining colonies reach deep into asteroid fields," added another representative. "Places Imperial ships can't follow. Perfect for hiding supplies or ships." One by one, they began sharing their capabilities. Trade routes that could be used to move resistance forces, communication networks that operated outside Imperial control, hidden resources that could support their cause. Stone watched with satisfaction. The Empire had tried to force every species to follow the same rigid patterns. Instead, they had created a galaxy full of potential allies, each with their own ways of fighting back. "The Empire thinks they understand warfare," Stone explained, bringing up images of Imperial battle formations. "They expect direct confrontation, ships against ships, following their carefully planned protocols. But we're not going to fight their way." He showed them his full strategy, a complex web of small operations that looked random but followed a careful pattern. "Each of us strikes in our own way, using our unique strengths. The Empire's computers will see only chaos, while we slowly take apart their perfect system." The crystalline being's surface rippled with interest. "A battle they cannot understand, because it follows no single pattern." "Exactly," Stone smiled. "They destroyed my world because they feared human unpredictability. Now we'll show them what real chaos looks like." The meeting continued for hours as they worked out details. Supply lines were established. Communication codes were shared. Training programs were organized. The resistance that had started with a handful of human survivors was becoming something much larger. Later, watching the representatives return to their ships, Reed stood beside Stone. "Sir, do you think the Empire realizes what they've done? By trying to control everyone, they've given us all a reason to fight them." Stone's eyes were fixed on the future. They thought crushing humanity would make them safer. Instead, they showed the galaxy that resistance is possible. And they're about to learn that the only thing more dangerous than human unpredictability is human inspiration. In the darkness of space, ships of 12 different designs slipped away from the asteroid base, carrying with them the seeds of the Empire's destruction. 2 years to the day after the destruction of New Eden, the imperial capital world celebrated the anniversary of their greatest victory. Massive parades filled the streets. Imperial warships performed precision formation flights overhead. In the Grand Palace, the Imperial Council prepared for their victory speech. None of them noticed that it was all going exactly as General Stone had planned. In his command ship, hidden in the shadow of a small moon, Stone watched the final pieces fall into place. The screen before him showed thousands of green dots, Alliance ships waiting in position across the galaxy. "All teams report ready, sir," Lieutenant Reed announced. Her voice was steady, but her eyes shone with anticipation. "The Empire's fleets are exactly where we predicted they'd be." Stone nodded slowly. 2 years of careful planning. Every strike, every retreat, every apparent random attack, all leading to this moment. He turned to Parker at the communications station. "Send the signal." Across the galaxy, thousands of ships emerged from hiding, but they didn't attack Imperial forces directly. Instead, they struck according to Stone's master plan, each target carefully chosen to trigger specific Imperial response protocols. "Mining Guild ships reporting success," Reed called out. "Automated defense networks going offline across 3 sectors. Trade Federation allies confirming," Parker added. "Imperial supply lines disrupted in 17 systems." Stone watched as the Empire reacted exactly as their protocols demanded. Fleets moved to defend priority targets, leaving other sectors exposed. Emergency responses triggered automated systems shutdowns. Security protocols activated lockdowns that trapped Imperial forces in their own bases. "Sir," Captain Roberts called from his station. "The Empire's central computer network is trying to coordinate responses. Their systems are overloading from too many simultaneous protocol activations." Stone allowed himself a grim smile. They built their entire empire on perfect order and control. Now that very control is their weakness. He pressed a button on his command chair. "All teams, execute Phase 2. The Alliance ships struck again, this time targeting the weak points created by the Empire's own responses. Their rigid protocols, designed to maintain perfect order, had instead created perfect chaos. In the Imperial capital, alarms screamed as systems failed. The ceremonial fleet above the city tried to respond to multiple threats at once, their computers struggling to process conflicting protocols. Ships collided as automated systems gave contradictory orders. Stone stood at his command screen, watching the Empire's perfect order collapse into confusion. "Send the message," he ordered, "to every world, every ship, every citizen of the Empire." Parker activated the broadcast system they'd spent months positioning. On millions of screens across the galaxy, Stone's face appeared. "People of the Empire," he began, his voice calm but powerful. 2 years ago, the Imperial Council ordered the destruction of humanity because they feared our unpredictability. They thought they were showing strength. Instead, they revealed their greatest weakness. The message continued broadcasting as Imperial communications networks crashed under their own security protocols. The Empire built its power on the promise of perfect order. But the galaxy doesn't want perfect order. Life itself thrives on adaptation, on change, on the very chaos the Empire fears. Across the galaxy, subjugated worlds rose up as Imperial control systems failed. The resistance ships Stone had positioned struck decisive blows at key targets, while the Empire's mighty fleets remained trapped by their own protocols. "This is not just humanity's revenge," Stone continued. "This is freedom for every species that has suffered under the Empire's rigid control. They thought crushing humanity would make them stronger. Instead, it taught the galaxy that resistance is possible." In the Imperial capital, the Council watched helplessly as their perfect system tore itself apart. Their protocols, designed to handle any military threat, had no way to respond to an enemy that used their own order against them. Stone's final words echoed across the stars. "The Empire made one fatal mistake. They thought they could impose perfect order on an imperfect galaxy. Today they learned that their greatest strength was always their greatest weakness. The Empire fell not to superior weapons or larger fleets, but to the very chaos they had tried so hard to control. In the end, human unpredictability had proven stronger than imperial order. And somewhere, in the ruins of New Eden, the spirits of those lost could finally rest in peace.